What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me. Once again, welcome back to the episode 61. Tomorrow we're actually gonna have a whole lot of live shots, especially early in the day, probably around noonish. We're gonna have a lot of things that we'll be sure to go ahead and be bringing to you guys reactions to games, player situations, all that jazz as Week 11 of the NFL gets started and gets moving on. So we appreciate you guys coming along. So there is a lot to definitely discuss, and it's all going to start with if it's time to bench Carson Wentz. That's mainly what this episode is going to be about. And the next question that we'll ask is DK Metcalf, the very next Megatron, comparing TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, or who would you take? And then also NFL teams who are better than their record suggests, as well as some different things to look at there as well. So really excited to get this thing rolling today and get some things done, and I'm really excited that you guys are coming along for it. So once again, ask you guys to be patient as we get things moving here. So first thing is it's time to bench Carson Wentz. I have to start out by saying I have nothing but love and respect for the man, the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. I actually was lucky enough to play on his field. We were up in the Fargo Dome. I think we were freshmen. We got the chance to go up there and play, and he literally, I'm pretty sure, has a shrine up at NDSU. That's how much people love this man, and that's how much he deserves to be loved, because he is truly a one-of-a-kind player in person. I'm absolutely, I was flabbergasted how cool it was that we were all up there. I mean, it was just fabulous. But the one thing I took away from that is Carson Wentz is king, especially in North Dakota. But I'm telling you, it's truly incredible what that man has built up there, did build up there, and I think that it's very impressive of what he had done early, especially early on in his career. So I'm going to start this argument by saying that, of course, I've got nothing but love and respect for Carson Wentz. On the other hand, I also know what it's like to go through a quarterback purgatory, if you will, i.e. Vikings fan Christian Ponder, Gus Frerotte, who was actually respectable, but Brett Favre, his second year, not the first one, not the magic carpet ride all the way to the NFC Championship game. I'm talking the year after that, where the bad year, the rough year. Carson Wentz, though, has been one of those quarterbacks that after you saw him in his first year, you're thinking, okay, he can do some stuff. But the way his second year came out and the way this man played, incredible. 33 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions, only in 13 games, by the way. I truly believe he should, if he would have played all 16 games, he would have won MVP, and it's not even close. Tom Brady, no. I mean, anybody, no, it doesn't matter. Carson Wentz deserved it that year. And it was unfortunate that he got injured. It is what it is. But at the same time, the man played well enough to win it. And it was just unfortunate that he did come down with an injury. But the Eagles did go in to win the Super Bowl, so I guess he lucked out there a little bit. But is it actually truly time to bench Carson Wentz? Personally, I don't know. Because I think if you're going to truly look at a quarterback and evaluate how he has done, you got to look at the talent around him. Let's look at his running backs. Miles Sanders, respectable running back to say the very least. His 86 carries for 519 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. He has 3 touchdowns this year. Boston Scott, 51 carries for 246 yards and 1 touchdown. The Eagles aren't running the football very well right now. They really aren't. They're probably one of the weaker teams in terms of running the football this year. They are forcing that upon Carson Wentz. They're putting him in a very rough position to be able to come out and have to throw it with receivers, by the way, other than Jalen Reagor, who I have been absolutely enamored with. I absolutely love what I'm seeing from that man. Other than Jalen Reagor, he has wide receivers that are, for a lack of a better term, a bunch of nobodies. Think about it. Zach Ertz is injured. Okay, it happens. Greg Ward was an undrafted man. He was a practice squad guy that came up, has shown some stuff, not disrespecting the man in any way, leads the team in catches with 37, but you get where I'm coming from. Travis Fulgham, if you don't have him on fantasy, get this man. Get this man. He's been looking great. 30 catches for 443 yards and 4 touchdowns. But the point remains the same. You've got a bunch of guys that are essentially finding their way in the NFL and basically scratching and clawing to find their way on a roster, but you don't have a legitimate, other than Jalen Reagor, who again I've loved. But you got guys on this roster that just, quite frankly, they're not getting it done. And I think before you start to point fingers at the quarterback, I think you have to look at the talent around him. Now, I know you guys could probably use the argument, well, good quarterbacks need good wide receivers and talent around them, but great quarterbacks don't. Yada, yada, yada. I've heard it all before. But can we not forget, and maybe that's true to a certain extent, but can we not maybe forget how good a guy like Aaron Rodgers was back in 2011 when he had guys like Jordy Nelson, when he had guys like James Jones, when he had that offense that was just going off. I mean, that was honestly one of the best years I've ever seen Aaron Rodgers play. You just knew the man was special. You knew he was going to come back and beat you, and there was nothing you could do about it. That's just how it goes. I mean, that's how great quarterbacks, when they have the talent around them, that's how they come out and just play. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is clearly, I think, in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL, and it's not even a discussion. But, I mean, he had guys like Ryan Grant and James Starks. The list goes on. Greg Jennings, who had caught for over 900 yards that season. Jermichael Finley had a good tight end, actually. He had players on every level that were just amazing, and his defense was actually somewhat respectable. Now, Carson Wentz, we got to kind of put him on the same pedestal a little bit. Between Carson Wentz's defense and the Packers' defense from that year, I'd take the Eagles' defense. I would. 9 times out of 10, I would take that defense, because this defense still has some of its main guys that come out every week, get the job done, and they absolutely find a way to put pressure on the quarterback. They shut down the run for the most part. The corners, can you nitpick about that? Yes. Last year they were rough. But this is still a good defense, and a defense that I think you can build upon and have guys like Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Fletcher Cox, the list goes on. But you have guys on this defense that are just respectable all the way around. So to say it's time to bench Carson Wentz, I don't know. Because if we're going to bench Carson Wentz, we have to look at everyone else around him. Look at Jalen Hurts. Do you really think he's really ready to go? I apologize. I always get Jalen Hurts and Jalen Mills confused, even though they play completely different positions. Jalen Hurts. He has completed 2 passes on 2 attempts this year for 27 yards. Do you really think that if they bench him, they're really ready to move on to Jalen Hurts? Personally, I love Jalen Hurts. I loved his journey to the NFL. I loved him when he was at Alabama. But is he truly ready to be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles? I would venture to say not. Not at this time. Because at the same time that things look better on the other side, the grass may look greener on the other side, I don't think you're ready to see what's under the hood with Jalen Hurts just yet. I just don't think it's that time yet. I don't think he's got enough tools right now. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the future. Maybe the franchise quarterback for the Eagles if Carson Wentz doesn't start to turn it around. But overall, Jalen Hurts is not ready at this point. And to bench Carson Wentz for a man that clearly isn't ready would make absolutely no sense. So let the former MVP figure it out with the Eagles. I know they just had a tough loss against the Giants. That might have been the game of Daniel Jones' career. Let's be real here. He's not a bad quarterback. I'm not disrespecting the man. But to come out and beat the Eagles the way they did, there's some respect behind that. But it's not time to bench Carson Wentz just yet. I think in order to give some love and respect to a man that was in the MVP conversation when things were going right, he was making that offense special. And I know Nick Foles did it later on, but Nick Foles is just clutching the playoffs. That's just how it goes. But Carson Wentz, from top to bottom, is the quarterback you build around. He's the guy you brought in, you selected with that 2nd overall pick a couple years ago. This is the guy you're going to have to stick with. And if you don't stick with him, that could be detrimental to the GM. That could be detrimental to Mr. Peterson up there. Now, again, I'm not putting it all on Carson Wentz. I realize, again, that he's had it pretty rough. His offensive line is down. But Doug Peterson has done him no favors. I mean, you talk about an offense that you never know what you're gonna get. I mean, Travis Fulgham, I got him on fantasy the other week. He was looking like a number one wide receiver, and then he comes out with a catch for 8 yards. Again, I believe in calling a spade, but if you're gonna come out and be this kind of a team and be this kind of a head coach, at least give your starting quarterback some help. It's not time to bench Carson Wentz yet. Put your heels in the ground, figure it out, and go win football games. That's the NFL. It's not time to bench Carson Wentz yet. Is DK Metcalf the next Megatron? Calvin Johnson might have been the most talented wide receiver in terms of talent, like size, speed, strength. I think he could very well be. He could be the most talented, physically gifted wide receiver, other than Randy Moss, that we've ever seen. But when he came out of Georgia Tech, I knew from the bottom of my gargoyles, I can't remember what movie I got that from, but I just knew, you could feel it. This guy was going to be special. Coming out of Georgia Tech, you knew this guy was going to be able to lead a wide receiving corps and just be that guy. As far as DK Metcalf goes, he is, in every word of the bit, and every bit of the word, a physical freak. And there's no way that nobody can else dispute that. Now, DK Metcalf is 6'4", Megatron was 6'5". Be nitpicky. It doesn't matter. They're the same animal. They're the same beast. The guy that have the same amount of talent, the impact on the opposing defense and on their own team, by the way. But DK Metcalf could be well on his way to becoming the very next Megatron. Maybe a better version if he stays healthy. Maybe. But Calvin Johnson, when I think of Megatron, there was no stopping him. There was just no stopping that guy. Even if the Vikings were going to beat the Lions by 2 touchdowns, you had to beat them by 2 touchdowns. You had to make them to get up on them early, because when the Lions started passing it to Calvin Johnson, they're just a tough team. With DK Metcalf, though, especially with how he's been playing, he's in the conversation, don't get me wrong, so I'm not disrespecting that man in any way. But to come out and against a Cardinals team, that's a good team, and they got the win. I'm not taking that away from them either. But to come out against the Rams and be virtually non-existent, I don't think I truly ever saw a game, or very few, in which that happened to Megatron. Very few. I'll be hard pressed to say that I don't think in my entire time of watching the Vikings playing 2 times a year for however, like 7 years he was in the NFL, whatever it was, I don't think I ever saw somebody shut down Megatron that way. Don't think it happened. So, on one hand, we've got an extremely talented wide receiver in DK Metcalf, who's, by the way, has Tyler Lockett, who has been playing out of his mind as well. So, Russell Wilson's got potentially 2 wide receivers. On the other hand, you've got Megatron, who was a proven commodity in Detroit, who had a respectable quarterback in Matt Stafford as well. So, in essence, Megatron, to me, is still on another level. There is just no stopping and saying that DK Metcalf right now is the next Megatron. I think he's on his way. I think that after he gets over 1,000 yards this year, gets in the league a little bit more. Yes, but in terms of physical traits, if we don't want to be all nitpicky about it, he is probably the most like Megatron we've ever seen. And I stand by that. He's an absolute freak. And did he get shut down once? Yes. But I don't think that's going to happen a whole lot more often. And plus, I don't think that's going to happen potentially ever again to that effect, especially against the Rams. TJ Watt versus Myles Garrett. Oh, I was waiting for this one. I was waiting for this debate. For this to see which one I would take. If I was a GM, again, something would have to drastically go wrong for somebody else in an extremely short amount of time, and something would have to go very well for me in an extremely short amount of time as well. If I was a GM tomorrow, between TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, I probably would take Myles Garrett because of the fact he is 2 years younger. He has about the same amount of sacks, just a little bit less. But at the same time, TJ Watt is quite frankly one of the best all-around defenders and edge rushers, that I have ever seen. So before we get into this, I have to kind of reiterate the fact that I was really waiting for this, because edge rushers to me are so incredible. They're so fun because you get guys that are like 6'4", 6'5". They can run a 4.6, and they're just fun to watch. They're just fun to watch. And at the end of the day, I feel like if you had to choose between the two, in terms of a total player, I think you would go TJ Watt, who, by the way, has 4 career interceptions, has an eye for the football. He gets his hand up, deflects passes, does his thing there. But if we want to talk about overall impact on the game, if we want to talk about the way that a man affects it, and defenses have to change their plans around it, Myles Garrett might be, in my opinion, one of the most special players already in his NFL career. Now, again, the last year's thing with Mason Rudolph was not in any way excusable. It was downright awful, but I'm hoping he moves past it, because if he can shed that little bit of part of his life, if he can show that he's a better human for it and be a better player for it, he's going to be something special. At 6'4", 271 pounds, everybody and their mama knew this man coming out of Texas A&M was the best player in the draft. He's very clearly the most talented player on the Browns, easily. He could be the most talented in the entire NFL. He could be. He very well could be. So far through 4 years, he's got 40 sacks, and this year he's got 9.5. He's clearly going to get to 10. Last year he should have had way more than 10. He should have probably had 20. But he had the situation. He had to go through a little bit of a learning curve there. But I still think that if I was a GM, I would pick TJ Watt in terms of overall player ability. I would pick TJ Watt over Myles Garrett. The main reason is because he seems to be more around the field. He seems to be doing his thing more. I truly believe that TJ Watt is a better overall player. Not talent-wise, that's a whole nother can of worms. Clearly, Myles Garrett is more talented than TJ Watt. But we're talking about all-around player, a guy that you can drop into coverage, a guy that you can that can cover sideline to sideline. TJ Watt is something special. Myles Garrett is on a whole nother level in terms of being a pass rusher. I'd leave Myles Garrett to do his thing. I'd go after the quarterback, do his thing. But TJ Watt, I would stick with TJ Watt just to start out with, because of the way that he plays on defense and the impact he has in the entire game. Myles Garrett is in no way a slouch. Again, obviously one of the most talented players in the entire NFL. But I would stay with TJ Watt. NFL teams who are better than their record. I feel like there's a lot of teams that could actually qualify for this. I feel like this has been a weird year. No OTAs, no preseason, training camp, but it was a weird training camp to say the least. There's a lot of teams right now that could be fringe playoff teams, in my opinion, that could find their way into the playoffs somehow. Like, they could legitimately be playoff contenders. The Atlanta Falcons is a team that comes to mind. Everybody's been making jokes about how they can't finish games and about how they can't get it done when the game's on the line. Am I the only one that remembers that this is pretty much the same exact team? Pretty much. Not exactly, but pretty much the same team that came out and went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. This is still a very good team. They've still got Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley is no slouch. And Matt Ryan is a very respectable, albeit underrated quarterback. They got Todd Gurley. They got a respectable defense that's finally playing better. They embarrassed the Vikings, by the way, that was rough, but topic for another day. Grady Jarrett is one of the best defensive tackles in the entire NFL. Deion Jones. I mean, from top to bottom, they have one of the best rosters, in my opinion, in the entire NFL, and it's not even close. If we're talking about players that overall can just get it done, this roster might be one of the best I've ever seen. And have they had their bumps along the way? Yes. Have they let some games slip through their fingers? Also a yes. I'm also not going to be that type of guy that just asks easy questions just so I can answer them and look intelligent, i.e. The Office. If you don't watch The Office, change that. But at the same time, I feel like a team like the Cowboys is also a great team to bring up. Now, obviously, Dak Prescott, his injury was just devastating. We all love Dak Prescott. That's cliche. Yes, we get it. We love him. Hope he gets better. But the Cowboys, other than the Falcons, are probably, in terms of offensively, clearly one of the better put-together teams in the entire NFL. Do they need some help defensively? Yes, Dexter Lawrence can't do it himself, especially when it comes to pressuring the quarterback. And I think that it's also one of those things, not Dexter Lawrence, I apologize. I think that this defense, even though as many issues that it has, this is still a very good team. Now, again, offensively, they're one of the best in the NFL, and Zeke is clearly, he's Zeke. We don't need to say anything else. He goes out there and eats. So, DeMarcus Lawrence, excuse me, I couldn't think of it. But this team is still very, very promising. They are better than their record suggests. They are not a 2-7 team. When Dak Prescott is healthy, they are an 8-8 fringe playoff team. They could be a 9-7. They could be a 10-6 team. The Dallas Cowboys, with how well they play, are very with how well their roster is put together and how well they can play. Jalen Smith, Trayvon Diggs, Leighton Vander Esch has been out since like week 6, whatever it was. They got DeMarcus Lawrence. They got Eldon Smith, who, by the way, I'm so happy to see the way this man is turning it around. Put together, this team is on paper very promising and could very well find its way into the playoffs. But at the same time, there's something to be said about coaches that can get the most out of talent. I don't know that McCarthy is the answer right now. I really don't. I've got nothing but respect for him. I think he can be a coach that gets it done. But Mike McCarthy has a Super Bowl that was won off the back of Aaron Rodgers having an otherworldly season that year and a moderately good defense. So, in essence, the Cowboys are a fringe playoff team, but they aren't a team that is necessarily, their coach is probably their biggest problem. And I think that a lot of these teams, after they have some coaches that maybe are shown the door, they can potentially find their way to the light, and maybe another coach can find a way to get some talent out of these teams, because between the Cowboys and the Falcons, you want to talk about talent. Those are some talented teams right there. My last team that I want to talk about and then get out of here and kind of get moving on with tonight is the Denver Broncos. I came on the podcast, I came on their live streams, and I said about the fact that the Denver Broncos can very well be a playoff team this year. I still feel that way because based on their talent, they are offensively and defensively. This isn't a Cowboys situation. This isn't a Falcons situation necessarily, even though the Falcons, I think, are kind of matched with them on both sides of the football. The Denver Broncos are still a dangerous team. I know things are looking a little bleak. They don't have Von Miller. They've had some injuries that have piled up on the defense. But their offense, I'm telling you, from the future moving on, the Broncos are way better than their record suggests. They are in no way not talented enough to not be in the playoffs. Clearly, things just went wrong this year. It happens. But at the same time, in order to be able to evaluate a roster, I think from top to bottom now, is there some things that the Broncos can do minorly for special teams? Yes, I understand that. But from top to bottom, this roster is incredible. I mean, 2 running backs that could start for any team, 3 deep at wide receiver that I absolutely love. I know Noah Fant is such a slept on tight end. It's a crime. It's an absolute crime. So the Broncos are certainly a team that deserves a little bit of credit, because next year, as early as next year, I believe that with Drew Luck playing the way that he is, with Phillip Lindsay, and this offense, guys like Noah Fant, KJ Hamler, yeah, we got it. With guys like this offense moving forward, this could be a very, very special team on both sides of the football, not just offensively. At 3-6, the Denver Broncos are, in my opinion, one of the biggest underperforming teams this year. And it's not necessarily all their fault. But Drew Lock has played well at times, and when he's on, this defense is scary. He's completed about 55% of his passes for 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Melvin Gordon. Is this experiment almost failed? Maybe. It's a question that's valid. 107 carries, 439 yards, 4 touchdowns. Philip Lindsay has half his carries and almost the same amount of yards. Give Phil Lindsay the football. Offensively, Noah Fant leading the team with 35 catches, 365 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy having a great rookie season, 34 catches, 552 and 2 as well. Tim Patrick doing his thing. KJ Hamler. This offense is something special. Deshaun Hamilton, also nothing to laugh at. This offense is something special. This defense is respectable. The Denver Broncos are clearly a better team than their record suggests. So, I'm going to kind of wrap it up on a little bow here. The Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Broncos are 3 teams that are clearly better than their record this year. And next year, they could be one of the best teams. All 3 of them in the NFC. The Broncos are in the NFC. They could be; those 3 teams could be one of the best in the entire NFL. If they, whether it's a coaching change, whatever it is, but watch out for those 3 teams. They could be something to watch. As we get out of here, I just want to reiterate the fact that Tristan and I will be doing live shots tomorrow. Kind of just talking Sunday, that is. I'm talking about what's going on, and if you guys want to listen to this right away, I will upload it to iTunes and everything right away. So if you guys want to make sure that you guys are listening and right away, make sure you subscribe to iTunes. That's where we put all of our episodes right away before we get them up on YouTube, before we do anything other special editing. So make sure you guys listen to them on YouTube. Also make sure to check out some of our lives tomorrow, and we're going to try to do this as a continual thing now that I'm now a Monday through Friday reporter. So make sure you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Take care of business. Watch some football. And spend some time with family. Take it easy.